Okay, my phone just got interrupted by an incoming call, so we're just gonna restart where we left off. Those are the textbooks. Those are disadvantage number, 25 of using your phone to do a presentation. Okay, so the first topic for all three conversation classes is going to be the same, and after that, all conversation classes will go in different directions. So I want all of you, conversation 1, 2, and 3 students, I want you all to do the same thing that I'm going to do to you today, for you today, which is introduce myself. It's always a good idea to familiarize yourself with your professor, or if it's a business situation, then with a client, or with a customer, or a salesperson, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm just going to give you a few pointers about how to organize your self-introduction, and then what I want you to do is type it on your computer and then send me the file to my email address. Now, the first thing I want to emphasize is please put your student number and your name in the header, right? When you send an email, you need a title. So you need to say, it doesn't really matter what you say, assignment or conversation 1, something so I can identify what the email is about, and then I want your student number and your name after that. I know that's going to be a long title, but otherwise I can't search my email box. I'm going to have probably hundreds of emails coming in, so I really need you to follow these instructions so that I can find your assignment and I can give you credit. So, in the title, email title, just write conversation. You can just write CONV if you want. Conversation 1, introduction, intro, and then write your whatever. If you're a freshman, I guess you're going to be 2020 0586 or something like that. At least your student number, and then your name, whatever your name is. Let's just say, I'll pick Sujin Kim. I don't know who that is, but anyway, it doesn't matter if you write in a Hangul or not, but the most important thing is your student number so that I can make sure I record your assignments, okay? So whenever you send me an email and you want credit for your homework or your assignments, please follow that format so I can find your assignment and I can record your grade properly. Now, I want you to introduce yourself as if you were talking. So I know you're typing, but you have to pretend that you're speaking like me. So the first thing you do is, of course, is what I did. A greeting. Good morning, good afternoon, hello, how are you, what's up? It doesn't really matter. It depends on the situation if you want to be casual or you want to be formal. Obviously, g'day or something like that, or what's up is not the appropriate thing to say to your professor, so you should say good afternoon or you should say hello. Canadians, I'm from Canada, so Canadians like to say hey, but that's not great either unless you know the person. So first what you need to do is do some kind of greeting. You don't have to be super formal, you don't have to do any bowing, or these days, coronavirus, no handshakes. Just say hello, and that's enough. Or good afternoon, which is a little bit more formal, but nice still. Then you say your name, Jeremy Sullivan, Sujin Kim, Jack Roberts, whatever the name is, doesn't matter. Greeting, name. After that, if you're doing an interview, perhaps you're going to be a little bit more formal, maybe not. You don't need to read your ID card, but you might say who you are if it's not obvious. In my case, I'm going to identify myself. Who am I? ID. I'm Canadian. I'm a man. I can say my age. Usually Westerners don't say their age. Koreans are more likely to. If you're from a different country, you might have to decide, but just so you know, in English culture, asking somebody their age is not very polite, so you should probably just leave it out. But I don't really care, so I usually say I'm 38 years old. Since this is Korea, Koreans like to know that, so I just say it. But you don't have to say your age. So where you're from, you could say something like your hometown, right? I usually say Toronto in Canada, which is not true. I live near Toronto, but nobody knows the place where I was born, so I usually just say Toronto. That's basic information about yourself, and you can think of it like, okay, what's on my ID card? My name, my birthday, my hometown, my country of origin, that kind of stuff. After that, you're probably going to talk about your occupation. Occupation is just a fancy word for what you do. You could just say job, but some of you don't really have jobs or are students, so you can identify as a Chungnam student, you can identify as a professor, you can identify as a business person, or whatever it is you claim to be. That's what you're going to say. How do you spend your time? You can be a volunteer, you can be a charity worker, you can be a helper, you can even call yourself a son, or I could identify myself as a father, a housewife, a mother, grandmother, doesn't matter. That's what occupation is. It doesn't have to be a job necessarily, but everybody has something that they can say, a way to let people know what they do. So in my case, Professor Sullivan would be my answer. My occupation is professor. After that, you have a choice. I don't want this to be super long, like mine is getting longer and longer because I'm explaining, but the length of this introduction should be about half a page, which when you say it straight through would translate to about 2 minutes, I think, when you're speaking, because that's what I want you to be able to do. If you have an interview, this is almost always the first question. Please introduce yourself to me, and then you talk about who you are, and this is the order that you can follow. So after this, you're going to have a few different choices. You can talk about your family. I hope you can see this. You can talk about your family, your likes and dislikes, or you can talk about your personality. So you don't need to talk about all of them. You don't need to talk about, you can talk about 2 of them, or you can, if you want, just briefly say something about each one. So family, in my case, I'm married, I would say. I'm married, I have a son and a daughter and a dog. And that's my basic family. My father and mother and the rest of my family live in Canada. And my mother-in-law, Chung Monim, lives in Sejong. And the rest of my family, Korean side, lives in Daejeon and Sejong. So that would be a brief description of my family. If you wanted to talk more about your family, of course, you could say, something about what your dad or your mom looks like. I look like my dad, I behave like my dad, or people say I look like my mother, or my mother's really kind, or I don't know, my father's a doctor. It's up to you if you want to give more detail and talk more about your family life. My family's really close, or I live with my family, etc., etc. Likes, dislikes are pretty easy. When I introduce myself, that's one of the things I always go for. I've liked computers since I was young, so just like everyone else, I use my phone a lot, and I used to play computer games. I usually use my computer for work now, but I do like computers. I love sports, and I love exercise. I love nature and being outside. These are a few of the reasons why I chose to live in Korea, because Koreans like computers and they like sports, exercise, and nature. So, that kind of worked out for me, is that my likes are generally similar to what people in Korea like to do. Lastly, you could talk about your personality, and we will talk about this in more detail later in the class, but this is one of the hardest ones to talk about. Sometimes in an interview they specifically ask you, what about your character, or tell me about your personality, and it's not an easy question to answer if you haven't thought about it. So I think it's important that you do think about your personality. I've had many, many interviews, and people have ask me about my personality a lot, so it's no problem. But basically, in a normal situation, people just see your personality, the way you behave. Like you just say, oh, Professor Sullivan is talkative and he's energetic, because you'll just look at me and you say, oh, that's what he does, so that's his personality. But in an interview, you don't have a chance to show your personality, so you have to describe it. You have to tell the person. So first what you gotta do is pick something like I did, energetic, talkative. And then you gotta give an example, because if you don't give an example, who is gonna believe you? You can say you're talkative, but how do I know you are? So if you are like me, basically my job involves a lot of talking. So if I wasn't talkative and I didn't like talking, then I would be a pretty bad teacher. So that's proof that I'm a talkative person. Energy-wise, the things that I like to do in my free time, I like to play hockey, ice hockey, which I can't play right now because the ice rink is closed. Soccer, nobody can shut down all the fields in Daejeon, so I have been playing soccer at the school field near my house. So, and basketball is my other favorite sport. So that's how I can let people know that I'm energetic, is I play sports. And when I go somewhere, I like to go fast. So sometimes, even though it's kind of childish, you might see me running, from room to room or across the parking lot. It's not always because I'm in a hurry, it's just because I'm energetic. So that's what you have to do. I want you to explain yourself, introduce yourself. It should be, just type it in, preferably in Microsoft Word. Type it and save the file as a document file, as a doc, and then email it to me. Assignments are regularly going to be due 1 week later, so Monday is March 16th. So do this lecture, read all the information on the page, and watch this video, and then you should send me an email the next week, March 23rd. You should send an email to me with your homework, which is half a page describing yourself, as I did verbally. And that's all I have to say for now. Hopefully we'll be back in the classroom, like I said, in April. That's the plan, but who knows how this is going to go. Everybody knows other countries are getting worse as well, so fingers crossed that we will see each other soon. If not, please do your cyber lectures, and I'll make other videos like this if I have to. But hopefully I see you in person. Thank you.